Today on the show, I have got Mr. Sketch Coleman from AVC. So, Sketch, as a company director of a media company that does some pretty mad things, we've had an awful lot of difficulty finding a little window in your somewhat manic schedule.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, our good friend, our mutual friend, Al, previously of the Skid Factory, now of Turbo Yoda and all the fun stuff. He put us together in May, I believe. So it's taken nearly 6 months to maybe a little bit more to finally find a couple of hours to catch up. But I'm glad we've done it. So I'm looking forward to it. And I've had a few months to listen through all the episodes. So it's been good fun.
So you're up to date and you've learned a few things about a few people we know and have worked with. Because oddly, we've worked with a lot of the similar people, but hadn't crossed paths directly until this.
Yeah, it's Josh. You mentioned Josh, who was the stunt driver at the most recent Super Cheap Auto Best Performing Oils campaign, who was actually the stunt driver for this car. So, yeah, small world.
And if I recall correctly, he was actually doing a monstrous burnout while towing a caravan.
That's the one. Yeah. So he, I guess, unfortunately for him, fortunately for me, we were tasked with turning this drag car into a bit of an all-rounder. I guess to jump straight into the thing about that commercial is when we were first planning it, when I first sort of got the the confirmation that this car was going to be one of the stunt cars, it was going to do a drag launch, like a trans brake launch, pretty much what a drag car does. And we said, yeah, sweet, no worries. And then there was a corner thrown in. Then there was a couple of corners. And then there was a caravan thrown in. And the caravan was also going to get towed while during a burnout. So we hit the drawing board again and basically rebuilt this car for that. So before we were getting the XY ready for the commercial, we actually had it set up as a twin turbo rear mount 427 in full drag spec, still leaf spring and everything, but set up to race drag. And it didn't want to turn. It really didn't want to even do a burnout. I mean, we spent a lot of time trying to get this thing to hook up. And we ended up putting 32-inch four-wheel drive tires on it to take up the room that the slicks did. So if you look at that commercial, it actually has 32-inch four-wheel drive tires on it. We went through a whole stack of them. We didn't want to burn the gearbox out by spooling up so long every time because we had to do 6 days or 5.5 days of filming, most of them trans brake launches and on the limiter. So that was Josh's department. He pretty much sat this thing. We did, to be fair, we did have to drop the rev limiter down 3 or 4 times for Josh because it didn't need to sit at 8,000 RPM just to do the stunts. So we ended up putting the rev limiter down to 6, but it probably spent over an hour on limiter during those 6 days to make about 3 minutes of footage. So it was really interesting because Rob White is the vehicle and stunt coordinator for these commercials. And most of the cars that get used are either built for it or they're drift cars or stunt type cars with hydraulic handbrakes and all that sort of stuff. This thing didn't have any of that. We hit the drawing board. We moved the turbos from rear mount up to the front to make it spool a little bit quicker. We only had 10 days to do that too. So we stripped the car down on the hoist. My next door neighbor, Kurt, who's done a lot of the work in the fabrication on this, he pretty much did 7 or 8 all-nighters in a row, moved the turbos to the front, and then we made it all work. Then we couldn't get the brakes to work, so we moved on to trying to get the brake system to work, which is hydraulic handbrakes, all that sort of stuff. Eventually got it pretty close, and then Josh had to work out the rest. And even though we got it as close as we could, I can't imagine that it would have been easy to drive compared to something that was set up for it. But if you watch the commercial, it had a lot of screen time and did quite a lot of action. So, and the BTS as well, you can really see it. Oh, hang on. Just to rewind to the trailer thing. The original idea was for it to hold quite a little trailer and just do a bit of a gag where it does a burnout with a trailer. Come shoot day, the trailer ended up being a 20-something foot, like full-time touring caravan, full weight, all loaded up. It was a massive thing. We had to tow it up out of a ditch and everything. So we did weld the tow ball on. We converted the parachute mount to a tow ball hitch, which I'll leave on there for drag and drives. But it was sagging down. It was just crazy. So this car has had a really tough life for that commercial. And since then, we've pulled it all down, done the valve springs, checked all that because it sat unlimited for so long. It bounced a push rod out, and that push rod went down in the valley. And then we did the rest of the commercial on 7 cylinders. It blew the exhaust manifold gaskets out, and that was only on day 2 of 6. So that night we had to tow it to Eaton's Hill Hotel, pull the whole engine out, go and get everything from Super Cheap. Pull the engine out, take the headers off, take the turbos off, take the dump pipes off, and linish the headers because they'd warped on the concrete at Eaton's Hill. So we've got some photos of it. I'll send them through. But absolute backyard mechanic. It was brilliant. Next day, perfect. Never had another problem. So
good as gold. Yeah. See, what do you need all that fancy machining for?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I have got the headers I've just taken off. You can see the turbo behind me. I did check them with a straight edge, and it ain't straight, but I just got a thicker gasket and she'll be right.
Yeah, that's what the gasket's for, isn't it? Just do it up.
Exactly. I'm running the Remflex graphite gaskets, so they take up to a quarter inch, I think, of slop, and I'm using all of it. But
perfect.
It's good.
Big chunk of ugga dugga on there, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's it. We actually prefer those gaskets now, so I'll go to O-ring next time we take the heads off and maybe get them done. But for now, the Remflex is doing great with like 40 odd psi back pressure, and they're holding strong. So can't say the same about the head gaskets previously, but everything's in one piece now.
My favourite thing when I see that sort of stuff is I try to imagine what the meeting would have looked like, where somebody suggests, we've got this car, we need to do a burnout. What we should do is chuck a caravan on it and then rip a skid. What do you think?
They are some of the most fun discussions to have. I mean, Reese, the content manager at Super Cheap Auto, he's pretty much the oils campaigns in their current state are basically his brainchild. He's worked on them for the last 10 years, I think. This current one was the 10th best performing oils campaign. And as they evolve, Reese has kind of been there from day one, predominantly because he is the one from Super Cheap who gets to sign off on these crazy ideas, but also has a lot of them too. So that's where a lot of the best ideas come from Super Cheap themselves. And then Chimera, who is a creative agency who have been working on the last bunch. All of I guess if you want to sum them up, they are cars doing things in places that they're not supposed to. So a golf club, a car park, a retirement village, and I can't tell you what the next one is, but the next one will be, just a guess, cars doing crazy things somewhere that they're not meant to, which is pretty much a good recipe for a video.
And for people who like cars, that's all their favourite things, is cool cars doing silly things with good people in controlled environments under controlled conditions.
Extremely controlled. And I think we have to try very hard to make them look less controlled than they are. And I guess that's always the balancing point with making videos and stuff too. Like the last few have had complaints made to the Advertising Standards Bureau and Clear Ads Australia. This year's one actually got upheld, as in the complaint was accepted and said, yep, okay, we think that looks too much like a real street, a real environment, something that may possibly happen. And the ads that are running currently of that same campaign have got a big censored thing over the top that says too rude for TV or banned from TV. So when that happens, it's okay because the YouTube stays up.
Yeah, and that's how you make a campaign even bigger. Is if,
exactly.
If what do they call it? Barbara Streisand effect.
When someone tries to delete something.
The Streisand effect is like, don't say the thing, and then everyone goes, "Did you see him trying to stop the thing?" And Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. That pretty much sums it up. So, and by the time the complaints go through, the ad's pretty much already run its first round on TV anyway.
Yeah.
So super cheap, just get a letter and there's a bit of back and forth, a bit of a please explain. And I mean, we all know how many people are really involved in making things safe on these sets. Again, like while Josh was driving this car, there was 5 safety people around, like sets were closed. The entire place was filmed at Lakeside, which is a racetrack already. And there's a lot of camera trickery with making things look a lot closer than they really are. For example, a car drifting past a camera with some people in the background, i.e. in this one was V8 supercar drivers. They were probably 20 to 30 meters from the car, but again, camera trickery makes everything look a lot tighter and closer and more exciting than it would have been if you're actually on set and the safety people and everything's planned down to the last minute. But
of course, well, this is the movie magic.
Yeah, exactly, and the fact that it looks real enough and exciting enough to get banned is kind of means everyone's done a good job.
Yeah, mate, I think it kicks ass. But again, knowing the talent of those drivers, their capacity to make a car dance is honestly unlike anything I've ever seen. They are phenomenal drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got this one was Levi. That was, a really awesome work with Levi. We've worked with him for the last few years with his drift rod. But I mean, unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. But it's so good to spend time with such an amazing group of people. I mean, my role in the commercials is kind of my favorite spot because we've got the production agency Taxi, who's the primary production agency for these commercials. I'm in there doing aerials and socials and hundreds of other videos in amongst the main production as well as like coordinating all the aerials. But my passion is the cars, so that's where I'm always based. If I'm not working, I'm often not in the production team. I'm down with the car guys, with the mechanics, and this year was my own personal car as well. But yeah, hanging out with Levi and Josh and Rob White, who coordinates all the vehicles and designs the stunts, seeing them work. Like again, everyone thinks they're a good driver. I think I'm a pretty good driver. But when push came to shove and we had the discussion which was basically, hey, Sketch, are you driving this car? And I said, no way. There's a difference between wrestling a car around and then there's a difference between doing the exact same stunt, exactly the same, 10, 12, 15 times in a row, safely at 60 to 70% of your ability, so you can nail it to within an inch pretty much. And Josh was doing it with my car, Rob was doing it with the drift car, and he was also driving the stadium truck in that one. And Levi was driving his one. It was and Michael had the buggy this year. He was driving the bloody Valvoline buggy, and it was too hard to get in and out of, so he was stuck in that buggy for 5-6 hours at a time, just getting ready for doing jumps. There's a big jump in the video where the Valvoline buggy smashes into the ground, and it looks pretty intense on video because it was, and his ass is actually about a centimeter from the ground every time he landed. So those guys are on a different level basically, because it's one thing to pull off a cool trick once or do a sweet burnout once or twice, but doing it within the inch, that's basically about the tolerance for camera focus, for safety, for vehicle clearances, all that sort of stuff. Repeatedly, all day, every day for 5-6 days is a talent in its own. And I think the coolest thing about the BTS of those videos is you can really actually see how much goes into it, you know. We call Rob White 1 Inch Rob. He doesn't love the nickname, but it's because he is often within that 1 inch sliding around car parks, clearing things. But yeah, I reckon 1 Inch Rob's a pretty good nickname.
I think it's a great nickname. Without context, it might seem a little offensive. But having watched Rob do pretty wild things over the years, one of my favourites is where he'd do a full noise 360. So like can just snap a car on the spot and then keep it going mid-drift. And you're just there going, mate, you're just on another level.
Yeah, and again, for this commercial, the one we did at Lakeside, that stunt was in there, the 360 through the caravan park, which was a racetrack with caravans on the side. And 3, 4, 5 times he had to do that within probably a foot either way, because I was in the air. I had 4 drones up in the air during that one. There was A cam, B cam, 4 drones and a slow motion camera. And they were all focused on the spot where the 360 had to happen. And then at the end of the day, you've got 100 and something people on set. There's only one person who's got to pull that move off. So the pressure on the stunt drivers as well is really up there. And it's one of my favorite things just to watch them work as well. So Rob designed that stunt and then pulled it off. So probably a bit double pressure on him because he's also got to pull off the things that he's come up with. So.
All right, he could do that in his sleep, I'm reasonably confident. But I also enjoyed that he got some FaceTime in the ad. How did he manage to sneak himself in having a sausage roll? Talk me through how that came to be.
I don't know if it was... I don't know if it was Rob's decision, really. I think it may have even been Reese from Supercheap, because Rob's been working on quite a few of the ads, and I think... it was about time to get him in front of the camera. So, yeah. And what better than have big belly, little balls, Rob, in the Chico roll?
Jesus. Oh, well, I'll have to get Rob on after this one with the amount of abuse.
You got to get him on. No, I think he'd be really great to chat to about how much goes into the coordination of the stunts and making sure that, not just on these videos, but on everything he works with, it's a pretty cool thing to put together. And I know... it's easy to underestimate how much thought goes into every single maneuver for stunts. And also he does car ads and all that sort of stuff too. So precision driving versus stunt driving, which are technically 2 different things. But it does both of them. Yeah,
when I ran into him at Time Attack, I think it was last year, and he was telling me about it. And he's, on the school run, chatting to the other dads. And I was, what are you doing this weekend? And Rob's like, I've got to go and do these things for this commercial. And they're like, what? Because, he's just there picking the kids up, doing the dad things, and just going, hang on, I'm Batman. He's out there doing these mad things.
It's definitely but he does it so seriously. He's just such a regular guy too. Like, you would never think that he's one of the coolest guys in the country, especially because he doesn't really come off like that's a huge priority for him. Like, he doesn't get super pumped up about stunts. He's just like, yep, cool, this is the best way to do it, this is the safest way to do it, let's make it happen. So the reason, I guess, that attitude is also probably one of the reasons why production companies trust him so much to do it, because at the end of the day, this isn't mucking around. It looks awesome, but it's a real serious business with a lot of considerations to take on board. So
there's no room for cowboy stuff. It is all consummate professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially at the level of these commercials and car ads, all that sort of stuff, it is a lot of big businesses coming together and a lot of small businesses coming together to create something awesome. And there's a lot of jobs created and on the line with stuff like this. Like I said, like, in a fun way, it's awesome there's 150 people here, like, watching this stunt happen. But on the pressure side, you've also got 150 businesses, basically, lots of freelancers, lots of small businesses, lots of small to medium companies who rely on work like this, and they need everything to be safe and on point and also exciting. So always a tightrope to walk there.
It is, and this is part of the challenge of doing these things, is people go, that's so cool, I'd love to do what you do. And you go, when you come and have a look at the actual realities of it, it looks pretty sexy on the internets, but the actual realities of it are bloody hard work. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that goes for all the drivers too. Like, I use Rob as an example because I work closely with Rob on these things, but all of the guys, again, Michael was in a car, basically strapped into a car for 4 or 5 days in a row. Like, Levi and his dad were out there, just lots and lots of planning, meetings, discussion, and then you don't have as many takes as you would like often because the show's got to keep moving. There's a very, very busy production schedule. And got to look bloody awesome. Like again, in the video, we had Levi with what was his stunt? He had the bloody trailer with a dinghy behind him. So there's a lot of planning that went into that, and drifting a tinny is not something that you have much of an opportunity to go and practice.
No, and I assume somebody flicked the strap and said that's not going anywhere. You would have had to tie that tinny down real hard. If
you watch the BTS, maybe that should have happened earlier because something did go somewhere once, but all sorted. That was just doing a practice run, and then it all came off perfect in the ad.
Classic. Again, that's one of those boardroom meetings we go, you know what we should do? We should drift a boat on the road behind a car.
Yeah. And honestly, like that is one of the reasons it doesn't happen more. I think the fact that Super Cheap is so supportive of it, but also in particular Reset Super Cheap, they've got the best performing oils campaigns have got a real support network within that company that I think a lot of other companies might just go, too hard to convince the board, too hard to convince the lawyers and the serious people that, hey, this is worth the significant investment in resources to pull off and to create something that builds such a strong brand in the country. I don't think there's many people in the country who haven't seen one of these ads, either intentionally or on TV, on the storefronts, on the posters, billboards, etc.
Yeah, so it's an incredible campaign, and I really tip my hat to the people at the top who helped push this through, because I'm sure you would get lots of board level execs going, is this, are the tea leaves going this way? Should we do this? And somebody's there going, fuck yeah, we got to do this. Like, if you want to stand out, you got to do something sick. We're doing something sick. If we don't do it, somebody else will. And I tip my hat to them.
Yeah, and again, I think at that level, there is probably some, as there should be, discussions of like, hey, what's going to happen over the next 3 to 4 years? How many of these are we doing? What do they look like? But you're having someone there backing them up and saying, this is why we do these things. And then the company as a whole committing to them is bloody awesome. I think it's one of the coolest things if you read the YouTube comments, you see people from all over the world. These are my favorite comments to read is Finland, Norway, like all of Europe, Americans, English people, even non-English speakers are seeing these ads through the YouTube algorithm and commenting some sort of variety on, if I was in Australia, I would only shop at Super Cheap, or I wish we had anyone doing that sort of stuff here. And I screenshot those and send them through to Super Cheap and be like, hey, look, this is a direct representation of potential customers in Australia and just in general, identifying the fact that this cool commercial, these brand ads, do build brand value within a community. So I think they achieve their goal and they're bloody awesome.
Oh, without a doubt, when you think of, because there's something as well about taking that risk that I certainly admire, and you would understand it as a business owner as well. I mean, these are calculated gambles, and to back yourself and do it in a manner, but then to be able to reap the reward, I think is something that, Super Cheap should be very proud of, because it's kick ass.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, talking of big companies getting involved, it's not just Super Cheap. You've got the 5 oil partners as well. So those oil partners also are involved from day one, basically. They sign off on the liveries. They sign off on which car is going to get used to represent their brand. And I've been working on them for 4 or 5 years now. But I always find it interesting. I mean, this year, in the previous commercial we just did, all of the directors, CEOs, GMs, and like very senior leadership teams of these massive oil brands were together. They're in a scene together, which is even more fun. Like, this is really putting competitors in the same room, and they are all on the same page. And I think it benefits everyone. And yeah, the Nulon guys were awesome. Obviously, my car was Nulon. And they seem to like it. So
that's amazing really cool, by itself, to have brands that are theoretically tooth and nail competitors to be working together on a major project through a major distributor and going, the greater good here is actually worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, from just seeing the process. I don't think they had to be there every day, but most of them were there as often as they could, because where else would you want to be while this is going on at Lakeside with
Yeah, that's a
multiple
cool
units
day.
shooting at the same time? Yeah.
Absolutely. You'd be sitting in a meeting somewhere, or you could be watching that. And I go, mate, I'm pretty sure I know where I'd rather be.
Yeah, and in saying that, bit of background info, at the set we had offices set up basically for execs to go and have meetings, do calls, get their work done while they were there, and then come out and check out what's going on and supervise, basically. So no, it was a really one of the biggest sets that happens in Australia, especially in commercial television or in commercials in general, every year, which is awesome to be a part of. But yeah, lots and lots of people involved, lots of jobs created because of it, and heaps of friendships as well too. Like there's a crew that come together every year for this, that's pulled together by Supercheap, and we're all mates and like see each other's stuff on Facebook. We pretty much only see each other in real life once a year, and that's on these massive best performing oils campaigns. So everyone looks forward to it. I'm looking forward to the next one already.
Wild. Now, given that I've only got 2 hours of your time and I love this long form stories, I'd better wind up. Otherwise, we could talk for too long about this. Because Sketch, one thing that is always obvious is that you don't wake up and find yourself in charge of these things. I'd like you to take me back in time. Little Sketch, back when he was called Matt. Mate, where are you from? Where are you born? Where did this journey begin?
Yeah, I haven't really even thought of that. I've got a terrible memory, so let me rewind. We'll play that.
That's all right.
Fuzzy,
yeah, back in time music. Where do you know?
Well, all right. I'll try and sum it up, because I've done so many random things. So I was born here on the Gold Coast, which is where I am currently at the moment. I'm in the hinterland just behind the Gold Coast now, but I was born in Nobby's Beach. Well, not in Nobby's. I was born at Southport, but born and raised at Nobby. I went to Miami High School, which is, anyone lives on the Gold Coast knows Miami High. There's a big sign on the hill, and everyone goes and smokes weed behind that sign. I wouldn't know anything about that, but did primary school and high school here on the Gold Coast. Probably got into a little bit more trouble than I should have, but eventually towards the end of school, I was playing with computers a lot, like just basic stuff like pretend hacking and stuff like that, send messages to people on the networks, and playing computer games via Excel formulas that would load up computer games from teachers' servers. But then I got a little bit too far and did some stuff on the computers that essentially accessed the teachers' network, and someone dobbed me in, and the school said, "Hey, you can't stay here anymore." But I had some teachers at school who kind of saw that maybe computers was something that I was going to be good at. So they wrote a letter for me, and then that got me, I applied to college early. I went and did a diploma of IT and A+ MCSE certification, all the computer stuff with Microsoft and stuff, and then got into that early. So I was only 16 and a half, maybe. Went and did college, mucked around there for a bit, finished my computer stuff, moved to, met a girl on the internet. That was interesting. I met a girl on holiday, and then we talked on the internet, and then I moved to WA to live with her for temporary, which turned into 10 years in WA. I went back and finished year 12 there, because I didn't have my year 12, because I was asked to leave the Gold Coast High School. And by then I was really heavily into computers. I was working in computer stuff. So I started a mobile computer repair company, where the logo was this car behind me, the XY. So it was called GT Computer Services, and the logo was obviously the GT from the XY GT. Spent a few years fixing mum and dad's sort of computers, like just home repairs and everything. And that was pretty fun. But I ended up moving into recruitment consulting as a information technology consultant for a pretty big company that doesn't exist anymore called Veracity, Julia Ross, which is just a national recruitment company. And I ended up somehow, by the time I was 22, 23, in a suit and tie in an office all day as a senior IT recruitment executive or consultant for a company I didn't really want to be working for, doing a job that I didn't really like, and I also wasn't particularly good at by then because I was just checked out. So this is probably the start of where most people might know my name from, I guess, is we started on the side running events at nightclubs and stuff. So I'd been DJing since I was quite young, like just mucking around. And then we started running some nights, some events, and then they ended up growing to the point where we had 3 or 4 events running in WA. So we had 3 or 4 nightclubs, Friday and Saturday nights in Subiaco, and then in Cottesloe we had a Sunday night, and these ended up growing to 500 to 1,200 people a week. So pretty big nights. Meanwhile, I was still trying to hold down a day job. My boss came up to me and said, "Hey, we kind of noticed that you really haven't done a placement, like closed a deal in 3 or 4 or 5 months. Is everything okay?" And I was like, yeah, everything's fine. They eventually shut my entire position down, closed the division that I was working for. So I got a redundancy payout there, which was awesome. That gave me the, I guess, the kick in the butt to go, hey, maybe music could be a serious thing. So that was it. That was the last time I ever worked a day job, which was in the year 2006, maybe. So we're going back quite a while here. Left a day job, and music was really becoming quite busy. So we opened an office there with my company. At the time, it was called Strike 3 Productions, which is still around. That's still the parent company of our current one. We started really, really promoting some good nights. Like we'll bring in artists like Eddie Halliwell, like some really big international artists. And then we teamed up with Creamfields, which is the festival. We ran the Filthy Gorgeous stage at Creamfields in WA, which was massive at the time. And while we were running those events, my brother had been doing all of our graphic design, all of our motion graphics and 3D stuff, because that was his background. We had started DJing a little bit more at these nights, because sometimes with music, you have an idea for how the night should go, but you're not necessarily able to find the right DJ for that or communicate it properly. So we started doing our own sets, and they started going a little bit better. And Tom was producing music at the time. So he had been making stuff under 3 or 4 different names. And then we were driving along one day, we saw the back of a tow truck, and the tow truck company was called Bombs Away Towing. And we're like, damn, it's a good name. Like, I had nowhere to use it yet. Just thought, you know what we should do? We should DJ under that name instead of a previous one we'd done called Serial ATA. Again, computer nerd, as in Serial ATA, the hard drive connection. Basically, we said, hey, all right, let's put Bombs Away on the flyer and see how it goes. The response to that was pretty good. Like, it was okay. We hadn't released a song yet, but then we did a song called Big Booty Bitches, which was absolutely 100% us parodying ourselves. Like, the music video is me. I had actually hid in my face too, because at that time I was not 100% sure how it would go. I mucked around. I had a bandana on, ski goggles. I had a turntable tied around my neck, a bit of the Flavor Flav like throwbacks, and like shirts on backwards, and just totally parodying ourselves, really. And it went ballistic. It went crazy on YouTube. I can't remember the exact views, but within 2 or 3 months, every time we played a show, it was starting to sell out just because we were playing. And we'd spent a lot of time by then building the sets and paying attention to that. So we ended up signing with Central Station Records, which is actually Midnight Music Records, which is James Todman and Brett Allen. They are still touring as Rave Radio now, but at the time they signed us, they gave us a call and said, "Hey, we've got a partnership deal. We want to sign this band Bombs Away. Have you got any other songs for us?" We said, "Yeah, we got a couple of good ones that we've been playing around. Like, just being able to test them in our own sets really, really gave us a great outlet to see if they were going to work and change them on the fly." So we went from Big Booty Bitches, then we signed a 4-track deal with Central Station Records, which is a subsidiary of Ministry of Sound and Universal Music. Then our next 5 songs in a row over the next 4 years went gold, platinum, ARIA nominated. So then obviously recruitment was forgotten and we were full-time touring. So pretty much from the time we signed and said, "Yep, let's go, let's do Bombs Away," we rolled back the events themselves. We were just too busy touring. We weren't home. I left my house in Perth so I bought it in 2007, totally different subject. Then the GFC hit in 2008 and the house was then worth about half what I paid for it. So I left the house in November or December, probably 2009. Touring was so busy for us that I didn't go home for 2 years, 24 months basically. We went home. We went to WA. We did play shows, but we never even really had time to drive up to the house. We just toured nonstop. We did Australia, Japan, America a few times, lots of Asia, Korea, but mostly Australia. And Australia was our biggest market, obviously. We started playing the schoolies events on the Gold Coast, which are massive, one of the biggest events in the country. It's kind of a rite of passage for a lot of young Eastern States Queensland or Eastern States like school leavers. Then we found that with schoolies, we were going and getting bookings from other places that were not usually booking DJs, because kids were coming home from schoolies from all over Queensland and New South Wales going, "Hey, I saw these guys, I think they're called Bombs Away," and they'd go to their local clubs and stuff, and they'd say, "Hey, you got to book Bombs Away." And we ended up doing, I can't remember how many shows in a year, but over 600 or 700. So there's more than 2 shows a week on average for 3 or 4 years in a row. It was absolute chaos.
That's mental. Like, that is mental. That kind of schedule. Again, lucky you were a young man at the time. That'd probably make you shudder now.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. So yeah, 2010 now. So what's that, 14, 15 years ago? So that went pretty much from then until Corona. Like, to sum it all up, as far as the music went for me, we had 2 years of tours booked in 2019 or early 2020, I think. And then we got the call from our agent who said, international travel is going to be a problem. We're going to have to pull the US tour down. And then the call was, national travel is going to be a problem. We're going to have to not do interstate shows. And then it was, you can't even drive to shows anymore at the moment. Venues have now got capacity restrictions to 100 people, or I think the rule was 1 person per square meter or something, which ended up being about 100 people in a venue that would normally be 1,000. So obviously promoters couldn't afford to pay to have someone like travel in and do a headline show when they could only sell drinks to 100 people. And then, so this all happened in about a 3-week period at the start of all the COVID stuff. And I went from the next 3 to 5 years planned out, booked, like, I know where I'm going to be, to I don't know where I am next week. I had no plan for touring and music to turn off. So that was a really big turning point, but I was quite into building things by then. So what I actually did was I started building face masks to donate to hospitals. So we donated face masks. We built full shield face masks because I don't know if you remember, at the start of COVID, immediately everyone sold out of every sort of face mask. Even doctors had no gloves, all that sort of stuff. So there was a big call for donations of face masks, and then they ran out, and there was a big chunk of time, about 4 months at the start, where it was quite serious. People had no doctors had no protection, basically. So we bought Lexan, we bought foam, we bought elastic, and we manufactured, my CNC cutter over here, face masks to donate to hospitals and locations around the Gold Coast and Queensland. So we gave some to Brisbane Hospital, Gold Coast Uni Hospital, Southport Hospital, and we sent a few to some smaller clinics and stuff. That kept me really busy during the first month or two of COVID, while I was kind of a little bit in denial about what the hell, how I was going to pay bills, pretty much. So to rewind a little bit, because I'd been building stuff, because I've been doing music and then building the masks, I had also been doing videos, and that kind of is the start of the current journey. Is about 5 years into Bombs Away. Actually, so from day one of Bombs Away, even our very first music video, we made that ourselves. Like Tom and I made that. Tom's a 3D graphics artist as well. It's my brother. And we've been making music videos. We've done 7 or 8 Bombs Away music videos. Some of them have 10 to 40 million views. Well, our most viewed music video I didn't make. Is an animated one for Drunk Arcade, which is at 40-something million views on YouTube. But Sam Green made that. Amazing animator. It's awesome music video. It's actually one of my favorites. We went to Sam and said, hey, we've got this idea. The song is called Drunk Arcade. We wanted to have all arcade references, any game you can think of. And he went and just did the most amazing, fun video, turned me and Tom into computer game characters. And obviously the internet liked that. And yeah, 40-something million views later, it's still going. I think there's still comments on it yesterday. Some of the comments say, where'd that sketch guy go? Or sketch dropped off. I'm like, yeah, it's been 15 years, man. So because we've been doing music, music videos, and it's a very, very similar creative medium to like music videos into proper video production and commercials. I had been working on some stuff in the shed, building electric bikes, and I've invented a few electric bike-based products. Sorry if this story gets confusing, but I'm skipping back to during Bombs Away. My hobby outside of music was electric bikes, and I was building a 80 horsepower electric supermoto, which is the most powerful motard. Is on a CRF frame. It's actually still over there in the corner. And I'd been making a video series on that, which had like quite a few views for something that was on the Bombs Away channel, but nothing to do with music. This was just me building stuff in this shed. And then someone from Supercheap saw it and reached out, and actually very similar to how I'm sitting now with a toolbox behind me. That toolbox was a King Chrome toolbox, a competitor's brand, and Reese from Supercheap reached out and said, hey, Sketch, I saw you doing this build series. It's really interesting. Do you want some Tool Pro tools to use? I can see you using all random stuff, and I was just using all random tools that, as everybody does, just bits and pieces. And yeah, Reese sent me a toolbox, and I put it in the back of some videos. And then while I did that, I'd made a video for Supercheap, and I said, hey, like, while I've got this toolbox, it's pretty cool, I'll do a video on it. Supercheap liked it, and said, oh, hey, that video was pretty cool. If you've got some time, we've also got this other product coming in, which was a awesome kids 12-volt ride-on monster truck. And I was like, well, I don't have any time, but I really like cool stuff. So let's go to the beach, let's go to the forest. And we made this video on a kid's monster truck. And then that video went quite viral for Supercheap. And they said, hey, mate, do you want to do a couple more of these things? At the time, I was too busy, so I only really did them for fun. But then now we're back to COVID. COVID hit, and I said, well, I've got some time now. Supercheap and Reese, I'm working from home. If you've got any products that you need filmed in the shed or somewhere that I can do within the restrictions that we currently had, send them out to me, or I'll go get them because Supercheaps were still open, and I'll do some videos for you. And they said, yeah, awesome, cool. We've got this and this coming up. Couple of $100 worth of stuff. See what you can do. And that was essentially what saved me from having to, I don't know what I was going to do during COVID. It was a real big thing. I mean, royalties come in once a year from music, but that's not the same as a regular wage, you know. And like a lot of people, it was a big stop sign on a lot of people's careers, a lot of people's studies, a lot of people's plans. But I was extremely fortunate to pivot within a 2-month period from 100% creative commitment to music and music videos to 100% creative commitment to some of the things I personally love, which is building stuff, cars, tools, fun stuff, and videos. I was like, this is awesome. This is I think something that I'm going to keep doing. So we started doing more videos for Super Cheap. I was also a drone pilot at the time for other stuff. We'd filmed Power Crews. We did a lot of work with Gup for Power Crews for a while, flying FPV drones. We had a drone company called Aus Co, real similar to Aus Video Co, but with drones. Real creative names I've got here.
I like that.
It's called Nerdbirds. Our Facebook was Nerdbirds. So because we always
I was going to say, for creative dude, yeah, that's just really not a very creative company name, is it?
Well,
you save your creativity for the work.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the work we do with companies other than Super Cheap, or including and as well as Super Cheap, is a lot of the decision makers are quite busy people who have got other stuff to worry about than creative things. And I think if they get a company name across their desk like Big Bad Flex 5000, they might not be as comfortable with that as something like Aus Video Co, Aus Drone Co. Oh, what do they do? Oh, they're Australian. They do videos. Great. Let's talk to them. So that was actually the thinking behind simple company names. Is
makes a lot of sense.
A lot of the decision makers, need to be comfortable working with you. So I thought about a few. I had a whole list of them when I came up with them. A lot of them got less and less and less crazy until it ended up being Aus Video Co. So that's the one. But yeah, so started working with Super Cheap, doing 1, maybe 2 videos a month, and lots and lots of other clients. We were doing stuff for Power Crews, mostly automotive because that's my preference. We looked at doing some wedding and portrait-y type things, like a lot of guys are really good at from a video point. That's not really something I excelled at. Like, I think you need a different set of skills to be able to work with people on a regular daily basis, real people in their own environments. And I found that I was leaning towards wanting to have a little bit more control than was able to be done during a real event. So even during Power Crews and those sort of things, like I was like, oh, it'd be cool if we could do some lighting here. It'd be cool if we could get someone to do this. It'd be cool if we could do a bigger interview with some of the drivers. And work with Mark from Street Effects for a little while. We're still quite close with him. He's obviously one of the biggest automotive Facebook pages in the world. I think 10 point something million on his page. So we did some stuff with Mark. He did some features on the car. So there was a lot of crossover by then with automotive stuff, because during COVID, while doing 1 or 2 videos a week, I said, you know what I should probably use this time to do, which a lot of people around the whole country did? I'm going to finally finish the XY that had been sitting on the other side of the garage parked up since the start of Bombs Away. I've had it since the year 2002, but I didn't touch it for a decade while we were touring. And as soon as I started digging, I started realizing, oh, this is a pretty cool project. I can do some things that we learned while building the electric bikes, and I really wanted to do something different. So we called James from Pulsar, and I said, hey, I've got this idea. I need a little turbo. I've got a relatively stock block 351. I want to do a rear mount turbo. I want to put it up the back. I want to do a blow-through carby and just do it as cheap as possible. It's a 6-week project. That was the start of what is still going 4.5 years later, which has now turned into a 1,500 and something horsepower twin turbo 427 dart block P400, whatever this thing is currently at the moment. But it went through a lot of iterations. So we went from the rear mount turbo, immediately got it running, went and tested it. I think we did 4 or 5 test drives, and the Cleveland block did what Cleveland blocks do, and 4 shifts, split the bores immediately, pinched the piston, and then I left my rods and everything all the way down the road on the way to surface. So then that was the start of, am I going to pull the turbo off, or am I going to get to work? So I called High Torque, called High Torque Performance. They put me onto Steve, their engine builder, and I said, hey, I promise I only want 550 horsepower, but I do want it to be able to handle like 6 to 8 pound of boost. I'm going to rear mount the engine with a single turbo, and I'm just going to have a cruiser. But I do want the block to hold up to it. So he did a dart block for me, lower compression so we could run some boost, 2V heads, like quite mild, very, very streetable 500 horsepower we were chasing. I did what everybody in the entire world does when they put a turbo on a car. They go, well, 6 pound, what about 8 pound? 8 pound, what about 10 pound? 10? Oh, 10's just getting there. What about 12? And then we're out of turbo. So we went from the little G40, I think it was, at the back, the single, to 238, 235 87s, I think. This is still at the back. Then we went to can't remember. We went up one more size. And then I told Steve, hey, what can we do here? We can play some funny business with the car. So he did a bit of a freshen up, did some better pistons so I could run a little bit more boost. Then we went from Carby to Sniper, the Holly Snipers. You've seen those? They're like a EFI, top mount EFI thing, self-contained unit. And that was when the EFI changed my life. I'd never driven that thing anything other than carbureted, and it was always difficult at best, especially when it had a high compression like 351 in it and a big stallie, all that sort of stuff. It was, as you would expect from being built in like the year 2003, things are extremely different by then, by now. So we went, all right, let's sniper it. That was pretty good. We did bigger turbos twice now. Kurt, my neighbor, did most of the fabrication while I was doing other stuff. I did all the wiring, all the electrics, got it working. We ended up doing, on the second last iteration with the Sniper, 900 and something horsepower, I think it got down at High Torque, which is getting pretty serious. Like 900 horsepower with drum brakes, no roll cage, full interior, zero thought given to anything else other than turning the boost up and then replacing the motor when I turn it up too much. Then we went to Power Cruise. Down the straight, I went to do a power skid, and once again, the rods left the chat and left them all the way down the straight at QR. But it was a brand new motor, brand new everything. And I went to High Torque and I said to Steve, I said, oh, shit, something's let go here. We got to find what it was. We couldn't find it. We went digging for ages. We checked everything. Turns out one of the injectors on the Sniper had fouled up, was intermittently fouling. But because of the way the Sniper is made, it's only 4 bores still. There's 8 injectors, but it's split over like 4 quarters. So we just basically had one section of the engine running super, super lean every now and then. So it was really hard to diagnose because it wasn't direct port injection. We couldn't see it. We didn't have a cold cylinder. They all looked good. The EGTs and everything were good. Oh, sorry, the exhaust temps when we checked them with a heat gun were good. But melted 2 pistons, again, that was it. This was now a dart block with like a lot of expensive stuff flying out of the track now. So I said, all right, well, we can't have 900 and something horsepower and, by then we'd already run a 10 something. We ran like a 10-2, 10-1 at Willowbank with drum brakes, and they pretty correctly said, hey man, I think you should probably revisit this setup before you come back. They were real polite about it. Everyone was pretty stoked. Absolutely no one expected it to happen. It was at one of the old All Ford days. And I said, okay, let's do it. Power Cruise was like the next weekend. Went to Power Cruise, blew the motor up and said, okay, this is the stars aligning. Let's really see what we can do. Sent the motor back to Steve. He did a fresh build, did lots of cool stuff there. Pretty much the full beans by now, but still 2V heads. I said, look, I really like the drivability of the 2V heads. It is still a street car. Like, we're not chasing sixes here. We are absolutely still registered. You can see in the picture that everything was mod plated by then. So I just wanted to get it checked so I could see what we could do on the track. So we did a roll cage. We did disc brakes, wheelwoods all round. Remind me to tell you about brakes. That's another thing. But we did wheelwoods all round, and while the engine was at Steve, he freshened it up. We went to new diamond pistons. I've got a stack of bent rods in that corner, as everyone does, but welded the block up. So it's still the same block that had some holes created, some vents created. Welded the block up, put it back together, and obviously the Sniper wasn't going back on because they were fine. Honestly, 900 horsepower from a Sniper was pretty wild. But we went to Haltech there. That was when we got the 2500, and we said, okay, let's do it properly. The R series didn't exist yet. Otherwise, I would have gone that way and done the PDM as well. But we went with the Haltech 2500 and got to work pretty much. Stripped all the old car wiring out, did the brakes, did a roll cage, I went to a T400 because I'd already during that journey. If I needed to work, the gearbox did it. So I got All Fast from WA, who I've known for years since I was living in WA. All Fast Transmissions built me a T400. Don't go over that. 100 was, hang on a second. I told you 1200 horsepower. That thing ain't 1200 horsepower anymore. I said, we'll address that when we get to it. And he said, okay, well, I'm telling you, you should probably do some other stuff. But honestly, I got faith in him. Big trans cooler, it runs cool, and it has done Street Outlaws, done heaps of no prep stuff. It's now running the new iteration with the Haltech and the 2 rear mounts still, not the bay mount turbo. So this is still rear mount. We put everything in. We went and took it off the trailer, and we ran an 8.6. So that was pretty damn cool. That was the goal. That was all I ever wanted. I mean, we all dreamed of a 12-second street car, then 11. Then Fast and the Furious came out, and then we all wanted a 10-second car. Then that was all I ever thought that this thing would do. And then again, Steve, high torque, the Haltech, 2 rear mount turbos running about 20 pounder boost at the time. So we had 1,000 horsepower at the wheels, and we ran the 8.6, which was awesome. That's still currently, I think, probably my Facebook profile picture. It's actually the shirt that I'm wearing. Look, there you go. So
I did notice the subtle promotion.
Yeah, well, this was a present. It's my birthday in a couple of days, so this was a birthday present from Madison, my producer. She knew that I'm obsessed with this big yellow thing.
Yeah, with a big yellow bus. That's amazing.
So
now you said that I have. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm still going. You got me started.
Yeah,
so
still
I'm just trying to
going.
make sure I finish this train of thought.
Let it rip.
I put the Haltech in, then ran the 8.6, and that brings us to the start of the commercial discussions. Reese from Supercheap said, hey, what do you think about being the Nulon vehicle for this upcoming commercial? And I said, well, I run Nulon. Nulon's racing methanol E85 fuel is what we run in this thing. I can't think of anything better. Let's do it. So that was when we pulled the turbos off the rear because we didn't want to cook the transmission for 6 days of spooling up. Took the turbos off the rear, added 150 shot of nitrous. We tightened up just basically tightened everything up, did a bolt check, moved the turbos to the engine bay. This is all in a 10-day period, by the way, which is chaos. Went and ran it on the dyno at high torque, and it did 400 horsepower and we were running out of fuel pump. So Dallas called it there and said, hey, we're only doing bloody burnouts. I don't know if you need more than 1,500 to do a burnout for 6 days. And that's pretty much how the car is sitting at the moment. We did the commercial. Josh thrashed it for 6 days doing basically all the stunts were real. There is no camera trickery there other than different angles of the stunt being repeated. So every time you see the car launch, that's a big trans brake launch at 6 to 10 pound on 32-inch full drive tires, towing your caravans, drifting, sliding. The only thing that we couldn't get working is the brakes. The rear brakes we never got to work. So instead of hydro handbraking any entries, Josh had to just mash it and slide into things. So a little bit of the creative was changed based on the fact that he could only power into things. He had no handbrake. Again, testament to Josh's driving is he essentially had no handbrake and barely any actual control over the braking because it's just such a big, heavy car compared to what he's used to driving. And then after the shoot, after we pulled it apart, put it back together, pulled it apart, put it back together, we went to run a little bit faster. And with the new horsepower, we couldn't complete a run. So this is this current calendar year. So this is in January, February. We tried to go roll racing and we tried to go to the track and we did no prep out at Warwick and we never completed a run. It kept coming up on boost. So it would launch, it would do a good 60 foot and then it would just massive backfire, fall on its face, and we couldn't work out why. Check the logs. It was an oil cut, which is unusual for this particular car. It's been quite good, but turns out as soon as we're pulling more than a couple of G's, we were right on the limit before of the oil slosh, and now with the front mount sump, there was just not enough baffling. I've got the sump behind me, but it was Morosso street and strip sump, did a pretty good job, but now we're talking 1,500 horsepower. We were just outrunning the oil. It was sloshing up the back. It was getting windage. It was wrapping around the crank. Insane amounts of blow-by. We were emptying 3 litres of oil into the puke tank every run. And we tried to fix it. We did lots of things. I rebaffled the sump. I mucked around for 3 or 4 months chasing it. The only thing that nearly got me a solution, which let me at least complete a roll racing night, was we got 7.5 meters of AN16 line. We ran it from the sump, just the bottom of the sump, out the sump, up the bottom chassis rails, over the diff, and then back down, and then into the oil pump. So the oil capacity went from, say, 7 litres. That hose held another 3.5 litres. So we had 10.5 litres of oil in the system. So before the oil pump sucked dry, it had to suck the entire oil line dry. And we were able to do roll racing with that because less G's on no prep. We were able to do roll racing. I think we came semi-finals or third from semi-finals. And then intercooler pump blew up and we had IATs of over 100. And it was pulling so much timing. We were running 3 degrees timing, just flames and just chaos pretty much. So called Steve again at High Talk, spoke to a few people, and I called Josh too because Botticher Motorsports is his granddad, I believe.
That's it. Ian Botticher Race Parts.
Yeah. And said, hey, we got to sort this out. What do we do? And everyone said, you've got to just dry sump it. You're at the limit of your 1,500 horsepower, 7.5, 8,000 RPM. You got to dry sump it. So
So much.
That's why that's as it sits behind me right now. We have the dry sump is behind the headlight. That's installed. The tank, Peterson, 5-stage dry sump. Everything is installed, and I am about 4 to 6 weeks, hopefully, away from doing a test day. And I'll say it here. This is an exclusive because everyone's been asking me about it. But we are going to try run a 7. And we are going to try and win roll racing. So they're the 2 goals for 2025.
Shit a brick.
And
that's good.
On paper, it can do it. But as we know, with cars, it ain't about what it does on paper. It's about getting everything to work together and actually do it. So hopefully we can do it this year. I've been working with High Torque. Steve, the motor's been freshened up. Again, we've gone from 2V heads to 4V heads finally, or CHI 3Vs, sorry. So it ran the 8.6 on 2 very small GT 3587s, I think, Pulsars. It had 2V heads. It had smaller injectors. It had smaller fuel pump. It didn't have bead locks. It was a lot less than it is now. About 1,000 horsepower on the dyno, maybe 1150. So on paper, it ran the 8.6 with 1150. On paper, it runs a 7 something, high 7s. But we just got to make the chassis do it now. So we're going to go in there, get it comfortable, low 8s, hopefully, make sure everything works, and then see if we can nip down into the 7s. So that's the goal there.
You bloody love this stuff, don't you, mate? There's like...
I do, yeah.
You're all the way down the rabbit hole here. Like 1,500 horsepower problems.
And don't forget, so at the very start of this ramble, I did say that when I went to Steve at High Torque, I said I only need 500 and something horsepower, and this is the same block, the same, other than the internals now, same crank, everything. So this is still that thing, and every time I talk to Steve, he's like, you should have fucking told me that this was going to be... I said, hey, everyone said that, don't worry, there's been 4 iterations of this thing. It's now engine mount turbos and all that sort of stuff, so...
Mate, you just got to go bill it.
Well, I think so. That's the thing. So I did 1,500 horsepower with no nitrous, and we called it because of the fuel pump. So I don't know what it'll do. That was only on 28 pound too. So I think we are talking 1,650, 1,700 maybe, which is pretty good for a street car. Like I have full interior. We're doing a full dash, 3D printed dash to put the new 2 Haltecs in it with the UC10 and the IC7. So it's full Haltech. It's the right color too. And as far as engine management, everything in that car is super modern now. It's not the PDM, but only because it didn't exist at the time. And one day I'll pull it all out and do the R6, I think it is. But yeah, still an absolute street car. I'm actually putting the center console in. We've taken out the hydraulic handbrake. We're changing from Willwood brakes to TBM brakes. I've actually got a set here. I'll show you. Hang on. So I got a set of the new TBM brakes for it.
Holy shit.
They haven't gone on yet, but these things should finally pull up the 4,200 pound machine.
Needs a diet.
Of course, TBMs from the States, they don't have XYs over there. And we have been working with RRS in Australia to build us up a TBM kit to actually pull this thing up. Because during roll racing, the end of that QR straight gets real big, real fast in a 50-year-old tank with relatively skinny front tires and very bad brakes. So yeah, we're doing this rebuild. Yeah, while we're dry sumping it, we're also updating electrical, adding the new Haltech screen, put bigger injectors in, bigger turbos. These are now Pulsar G40 1100s, I think. They're the new gen ones. So I think we'll do it, but who knows? That's the best thing about playing cars. You never know what's going to happen.
Usually they break.
Yeah. And don't forget, I'm doing this with a gearbox that was rated to 1,200 horsepower. So I won't be surprised if that's the next thing that goes. But again, cars.
The cars, mate. I've been told I've got a barra swapped ELX R6,
Oh yeah.
and all the good advice told me keep it under 450 horsepower, because everything will start to break. And would you believe I'm old enough and sensible enough now to have followed that advice?
Nice. That is a
I've just left it
real
alone.
milestone in life. Yeah.
And
also,
I am really proud of myself to not fuck with it. I'm actually I'm really proud of my restraint because I want to.
It is hard. It is difficult because you've got such great access now to modern parts, modern engine management. Like Spool does piston and rod kits and stuff for those that you could, for essentially extremely cheap, especially compared to building an old small block Ford. 1,000 horsepower is on the cards for that too. So there is a lot of
every day of the week
self-control.
Yeah, because it's 400 at the wheels.
Not doing it.
Yeah, and so I had to put semi-slicks on it because I kept doing number 11s just not on purpose. Just so it'd hook
up. What tires did you put on?
Yokohama's 8009s.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So
I think the magic number for a street car is probably 400 and something. Anything more than that, and you're at the limit of the actual street surface and stuff anyway.
That's what I have
it's cool
found.
To have more, but
yeah, it is. But I just wanted to go, and the fact that it wasn't supposed to do that because it was a 97, with the old single overhead cam. So the fact that it does do that when people see it on the freeway and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's sick," and then you fucking drop it and
that's
dirty big spool, and they go, yeah.
I love the E series, the EAs and stuff as well. We had as part of, again, years ago in year 2000-ish when I first got the XY, we were part of Ford forums and all the Ford car clubs and stuff like that. And we had a heap of guys with the EAs, ED, all that sort of stuff. And one guy, Carl Fender Lindenberg, he turboed one of the first E series, one of the first cars that I actually 20 years ago, one of the first cars that I ever knew an actual person who turboed a car. And that is a big difference to that chassis, and it's bloody awesome. I love that shape.
It is so cool. I've got an ED as well. I've got a white one, and it's got so I swapped it. I blew up the first motor, put a few atmospheres in it, and it went nah. So I ripped that out, found a Tickford motor, put a turbo on that, and that's now waiting to be completed, sitting in a friend's shed, as all good project cars are. So yeah, I've got an ED and an EL. And then I'm just chasing an AU so that then I can have the holy trinity of 90s.
The trifecta. That's the trifecta. The AU thing is crazy. I got a few drift guys that live around me because I live in the hinterland. There's a few Falcon drift guys out my way. We hear them on a Saturday night.
Yeah, people went, hang on a sec, these are fucking great. They're cheap and they skid.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I got a couple of friends who are hardcore Japanese drifters, and then some other guys who are Falcon drifters, and never the two shall mix, basically. But I like them both.
Absolutely, I don't care what it is, mate. If it's a fucking lawnmower, if it makes noises and does things, I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think there must be something about rust because I just keep being attracted to rusty old Fords. So I've got an XB coupe just sitting over here, big black rusty XB coupe. And then this XY, which we cut about 20, 30 kilos of rust out of. So yeah, rusty old Fords, that's me.
Mate, I know the rust. I've got a 60 series Land Cruiser, and like at this point, it feels like it's more rust than steel. It's sad.
Well, it's weight reduction too. You get better fuel efficiency. The more that falls out of it, the better the fuel efficiency you get.
Just the speed holes. Some of them I've just put stickers over them, like, big fucking rust patch. I'm just like, I just can't even be bothered. I used to do it properly, and now I'm like, I just don't even fucking care anymore. This thing's just going to fall apart. The speed holes makes it go faster.
Yeah, that's it. You just need to put a sticker over it. It's good. The next guy can deal with it too.
Yeah, that should be right. Now, look, you've given me a whole lot of story here, and I'm still kind of somewhere stuck back at the recruiting version of yourself. Honestly, mate, your character arc from the outside looking in is a pretty wild story. You've got the mild-mannered hacker in school through to superstar DJ through to lunatic car video man. Like, again, you look at this story from the outside, and obviously there's a lot of details into each of those things. It is a fairly wild story.
I think it's probably ADD related. I get a new hobby and then I get hyper fixated on it until I'm the best at it, or good enough at it that it's not a challenge anymore. And it's not always a good thing, sometimes I'm spending too much time on this thing that isn't meant to be a priority. For example, I got into drones recreationally. Love drones. Oh, cool, I'll fly around for a bit. Within 2 years, licensed drone pilot, drone company, building FPV drones. My whole shed was drones for a few years, and then from that, meet lots of good people. So I've got groups of friends who are 100% drone guys. I've got groups of friends who are car guys, friends who are computer guys, and they are quite different groups. But I think part of the reasoning behind that is probably I find a thing and I can't get it out of my head. I become obsessed with it until I know everything about it. I'll read about it till 4 a.m. every night for 6 months, and I'll do it. I'll buy the things like electric bikes, same kind of thing. I lost my license for probably speeding, the usual. Didn't have a way to get around. I was like, I wonder if electric bikes are cool. Bought a shitty electric bike. Went, this bike sucks, but I see the potential. Started looking at parts. And this is going to be another random part to this story, but started looking for parts for an electric bike. And I saw, these motors are available on the internet in China. They're called Leaf motors or MXUS motors, and then eventually became a QS205 motor, which is just a round hub motor that goes inside the wheel and the spokes go onto. They're rated at 3,000 kilowatts. So in Australia, the legal limit's 250. So I thought, 3,000, that's crazy. So I went and bought some motors, built a battery from remote control car batteries, and I built a speed controller. So this is all pretty standard stuff. Millions of guys out there or people out there build electric bikes in this way. You get a push bike frame, you convert it into an electric bike, and away you go. You've got 10 times the legal limit, which is pretty good. You can do 60 k's an hour. You can, and this is still 7 or 8 years ago now. And I thought, well, this is good. If this is good, more's got to be better. How can I make these faster? So I upped the voltage. I went from the usual 42 volts to 84 volts, and then from 84 to 115. And then you need to get a different speed controller. So we were running speed controllers from tuk-tuks. So you buy one of those, and all the motors are the same. They're a three-phase brushless motor. If you can give them the signal, you can just keep running more power. We got to the point now where there was a race coming up, an electric bike race coming up in Newcastle called the Newcastle EV Fest. And in the lead up to that, a friend of mine, Matt Eklum, we'd bought these frames from China called Cool Bikes, I think they were. And they were just a big boxy frame where you could just stuff more and more batteries in to run more and more power. But the limit of everyone around the world, internationally, the limit of their power had become the motors. They burn out. So if you run too much current into any wire, it's going to cook. But the limit for a 3,000 kilowatt rated motor was probably 3,000 watt motor was probably 6,000 watts. So if you can pump 6 kilowatts into this motor now at very, very short peaks, like acceleration for a couple of seconds, they'll hold together as long as you don't overheat them. So I started thinking there's no limit on battery power now. There's no limit on these controllers. I'm buying tuk-tuk controllers that can put out 10 kilowatts, 12 kilowatts, 14 kilowatts, but the motors fry immediately. But they were only frying from temperature. So I basically came up with a prototype before this EV festival of this thing. Again, extremely simple idea. It's heat sinks, computer-based heat sinks. We stuck, I've got them here. They're just off camera, actually. Computer-based heat sinks. We stuck around the body of the motor itself. So as the shell gets hot, it could radiate the heat into the air. It was quite effective. It let us run a fair bit more power. Then we combine that with a magnetic fluid called ferrofluid, which is what they use in speaker competitions, like SPL competitions, tweeters. It sits between the magnet and the rotor and the stator, so the magnet and the windings, or the magnet and the shell, and it creates a thermal bridge between the hot part, which is the windings, and the part that can radiate the heat, which is the shell of the motor. When we combine those two together, we then had a 3 kilowatt motor that was handling 15 kilowatts, nearly constant, 15 kilowatt peak, about 10 kilowatt constant. So there was a period in time where mine and Matt's electric bikes, just before this race in Newcastle, were arguably the most powerful electric bikes in the world. We went down to a race in Newcastle, and we thought we'd do okay. But everyone around the country builds these the fastest possible electric bike they can build to race around a go-kart track or a small car track in Newcastle. We got there and we were able to do wheelies down the straight at 80-something k's an hour, 80, 90 k's an hour. This on push bikes. We were able to stop, chat, do wheelies, like put on a bit of a show, and we ended up lapping the rest of the field. These were now officially the fastest electric bikes in the world. They just won the festival in Australia. We did some testing with all the Americans, and nobody was able to put this much power through the motors. And we started getting people say, hey, can you, like, do you think this would work? Do you think that would work? So what I did is, on one of the forums, the big electric bike forum at the time called Endless Sphere, I started open sourcing the design for these heat sinks. And they go around the push bikes hub, so we called them hub sinks. And I designed them, CNC them, was making them out of billet. I've got a CNC machine here. I made these billet heat sinks that were specifically made for electric bikes, and they absolutely changed the game. So almost every, or say 80% of high performance electric bikes in the world now run these hub sinks. So that's my invention, my creation. We went to get a patent, but we kind of realized that China doesn't pay attention to patents. And the cost of getting a patent was about 20 to 28 grand, and it was only relevant in Australia. And one of our biggest audiences was 8 countries in Europe. We're selling to America. So instead of building the patent, we invested that money into marketing, and we built the HubSync brand up. That became an industry standard for electric bike cooling. And then we started getting some deals with manufacturers, which is companies who are making electric bikes going, hey, we could probably copy this design. It's straightforward. We can see how it works, but we want to use your brand. We want to license HubSyncs. We want to say, hey, our bike runs 16 kilowatts, 15 kilowatts, 12 kilowatts, when previously the limit was 3, and it includes a hub sync. So we started making distribution deals around the country, around the world, sorry. We now sell to 30-something countries on a regular basis. I still run it out of the shed, but predominantly now we wholesale to bike manufacturers. One of the biggest people who buys from us now, which is a real testament to good business practice, is the company that manufactures the motors in China that we use to run heaps of power. They contacted us and said, hey, we want to sell our motors with your product. We want to license the name. We want to say, hey, we're selling the motor's called QS, so it's QS motor. We want to sell an option of our motor which is rated from the factory as a high performance motor. We will install it. We'll sell it with the motors. We will have it as an option. We still want you to manufacture it, and we're willing to buy it from you at a wholesale rate. Even though, and they didn't say this out loud, but it was definitely implied in the conversation, even though they could walk to the factory next door with a photo of them and just have them made next door, and it would cost them bugger all. So
wow,
that arc has been totally separate to everything else, but it was related
That's
to the
insane.
original reason that we found super cheap, which was
You're a
building
fucking
electric
mad
bikes on the
scientist.
internet.
You're Aussie
No.
Elon going on here, mate. You're going to be sending rockets to Mars next. This is
Well,
this is out of control. I didn't expect any of this.
Yeah, so I mean, not many people know that because I've never really
No.
talked about it as part of cars
Because
and music. But yeah, we
I've picked
sell.
up on your science and the fact that you've got a CNC and you're making things, and I'm there going, hang on a sec, like this is mayhem.
Yeah, so I prefer, like, if you were to say, like, at the very start of the interview, you said, how would I like identify myself?
Yeah,
I prefer, if I was left to my own devices, would be just just creativity, whether it's building things, inventing things, making videos, doing lighting and video production stuff. Not necessarily script writing and movie making. I much prefer the commercial side of things because, again, attention span. I like 100% attention on small projects that I can complete and go, that was awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why I'm in commercial filmmaking, commercial videography. But yeah, so after Hubsync invented a few other electric bike things, I worked with a guy named Wes, a computer engineer, to develop a thing called the wheelie box, which interpolates the signal from the throttle on any electric bike. It interpolates the signal from the throttle to the bike controller, runs it through a 6-axis gyro, and then the algorithm that we have basically goes, is the bike meaning to move forward? Is the bike meaning to change its angle of attack, its rate of attack? So are you trying to do a wheelie? And if so, what angle is that wheelie on? So this is related to drone technology, but basically it's a box that electric bike guys can install on their bikes. Between the throttle, simple install, it's basically 4 wires, but inside the box is the brains that you can log into. You can say, hey, this is my weight, this is all the stuff that I want to enter into the computer. Please don't let me flip over. So now we've got a box that we sell, or that we're still developing, but there's prototypes out there working with some testers. It's called the wheelie box. And if you are riding an electric bike, you just pin the throttle and it just holds you a wheelie. There's videos on my Facebook of testing it, just riding around the neighborhood on one wheel. Pretty much turns the electric bike into a unicycle. So that idea we came up with.
That's amazing.
It was originally just the launch control because we were building the 80 horsepower supermoto, the race electric bike.
And you
it
didn't
kept
want it
wanting
to flip.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was doing 0 to 100 in about 4 seconds, but only because we had to be so gentle on the throttle. With the launch control, everything without being able to flip, it's now under 3 seconds, 2.9 seconds to 100 on a dirt bike. So
this is madness.
I like building things.
I love this. Well, too, I am a tinkerer. I love to make things. I love electronics. I love pulling things apart, putting things together and going, why? And love going, well, hang on, that doesn't exist, but I can see it in my mind. I just want to make the thing. And so I make the thing. And I've had to learn the skills later in life because I never sort of applied any of that. And I'm listening to all these cool things that you do where you just like look at shit and you're like, that's fucked. I can make that. And you're going, oh, I can fix that. And then you just make the thing. And all your computer science background, so the study that you did early on, that I have to imagine the way that you approach problems, you would have a very analytical mind and a very strong understanding of those sort of code practice to be able to execute on these things.
Yeah, well, interestingly, you mentioned the difference between studying IT and then becoming a touring musician. The irony there is I didn't get into DJing from just a musical thing. One of the biggest things that drew me to DJing was the computer side of things, producing on the computer, the technical side of sound engineering, setting up the equipment, producing, using computers. It was very, very. We started Bombs Away, myself, much more on the nerd side of things, like, which I say in a positive way. Like, I just love playing with things, gadgets, computers, remixing stuff on the computer, like just building things with electronics that happen to make music. And then there's a few iterations of Bombs Away. We've toured with keyboards, we've toured with guitars, we've toured with live synthesizers, all that sort of stuff. And I love the tech side of that and the setup and the audio engineering behind it. So the music was also obviously it was there, but it was more closely related to the computer side of things than most people think at a glance. But there is
I
a
can
lot
see
going
that.
on with decks and laptops and all that sort of stuff. That ties electronic music in a lot with literal electronics. And
Well,
to take
it
that even
does.
further, I was going to say, there's a group of people who, it's called DAWless jamming, DAW, as in like digital audio workstation. It's basically analog music production without using a computer. So it's just walls of patch cables and electronics and synthesizers and keyboards and all that sort of stuff. But it's just essentially nerds making music. Like a lot of stuff that is big, well-known, cool music is made by nerds like us. So it's really good.
This is what we used to say back in the 90s, is nerds will rule the world. And
Yeah, that's it.
It came true in our lifetime, that's for fucking sure. I'm just actually finding it really fascinating, because like one of my favorite places to go is JCar, because I'm always like needing obscure shit for obscure projects. And I'm like, fuck, where am I going to get at that? And I'm like, they'll have it. Because they're not things that you buy off the shelf, and they're always obscure. Yeah, and I see you two suffer such interesting elements.
I think, well, Tandy's gone. So it used to be JCar and Tandy, and now Tandy's gone. So it's just JCar. And I'm glad that they still stock resistors and capacitors and diodes and all the stuff that nobody else has it except RS Electronics.
I'll make you laugh. Just out of shot here is an EML unit that I'm tinkering with, because the capacitors are overloading. This is to make the gearbox in my V12 start talking, because we sat there like actually generating all the signals so that we could actually actuate everything. So the oscilloscope, if I'm getting it right. I'm not as smart as the people that help me. But yeah, so that we could fire every single thing. We tested every single pin. And like, I'm mad for that shit. Like, I just love that. Yeah. I think it's incredible.
It's bloody awesome. Yeah. I love the attitude of, if someone else can build it, that means someone can fix it, or someone can also build it, you know? Like, there's a bit of a throwaway, I mean, even like I got friends who are mechanics and stuff, and they said no one fixes anything anymore because parts from China are so cheap and stuff that people are losing the skill of genuinely fixing and rebuilding things now, because it's so easy to get parts for modern cars, but real hard to find things when we're hot rodding things, you know, and it's becoming a little bit of a lost art. So I really like trying to keep that sort of vibe going.
I'm there with you, mate. I'm all about keeping the dream alive. I love old stuff and fixing old things and buying old things. And that shoulder is one of my other recent projects. When I learned to shoot on SVHS in the 90s, and that's one of the cameras I shot on. And I've figured out how to output a signal and then like hillbilly it into a Blackmagic recorder, so it's actually generating a signal. I'm going RCA to HDMI and then into that, and then recording, so that I can, because I went, well, hang on, what a pain in the ass having to get like transcode like afterwards. I went, I can fucking run that hot, and then I've like put all the bits together, and I'm like, bam, now it works. So I can shoot.
That's it.
Yeah, so I can shoot VHS like on the fly, and then just pull an SD card out of it. And I'm currently just figuring out how I can get my V-Lock to work on the back, and then I'll make a little mount for it. Because same thing, I just look at it and go, well, why the fuck not? No one cares. Like, it's, you know, I paid $100 for it off someone on Marketplace, and if I break it, I'll buy another one. But it's just
such a cool vibe too.
It's so cool. The look is incredible. I shot a car meet with it just for fun, because I was doing that sort of stuff where you're like hanging out the window with these big fucking cameras in the 90s. And I'm like, that's cool. Like, it's just fun for no particular reason other than just making something that you think is cool.
Yeah, I think that camera is probably one of the very few left that's doing anything too. A lot of, I mean, the ones I've seen, have you seen, I don't know if you've seen, have you seen Dixie down in Melbourne? He's got the DeLorean. He just did a full boost episode last week. But he's got the camera from Back to the Future in the DeLorean, and it still works as well. It looks so cool when you play back the VHSs, the videotapes on it. Like, there's there's no. I mean, there's plenty of like filters and stuff, like even in Resolve that try and
but
look
it's
like it.
not
Nothing's
the
proper
same.
analog.
It's not the same. Whereas when it's being shot through that lens and captured through that vision, it's different. And it's even, I've got stuff everywhere. You'd understand this. Like, your paintbrush is whatever you choose to use. And so, I've always got different lenses and different things and just putting stuff on stuff and making stuff work with stuff for no particularly good reason other than I'm like, fuck, that'd be cool if. And then like just figuring out a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like again, never-ending pointless project.
Pretty much hot rodding stuff. Like that's the same vibe that the guys had in the 50s and 60s when they were building stuff from whatever they had laying around. Like literally creating stuff from bits. I think that there's such a cool vibe in that, and that's probably that creative mindset too. Like some people are creative. Like I can't draw. I can't paint. I'm not. My brother can, but for me, it's creative ideas, building things, technical stuff, but still on like you said, a hot rodding kind of building shit that doesn't really need to be done. That's the fun bit.
Absolutely no reason, and like there's no commercial gain. There's no point other than I think it's cool, and I can't get that idea out of my head until I do the thing. And then once I do the thing, I'm like, okay, that's sick. I've done it. And then there was no point to the entire project other than I thought it was funny.
And then you've done the thing. The worst thing for me is when you haven't quite finished the thing, but you're close enough that you're like, oh yeah, this is going to work. I'm nearly done with the thing. And then you can't be bothered doing the thing ever again, and you never want to hear about the thing anymore in your entire life. That's my problem, is trying to overcome that hump and finish the thing and then go, yep, that's done.
Yes, look, the graveyard of ideas, and I must say my wife is very tolerant, but she has also encouraged me to just throw shit out, and I have kind of, but like I'm getting better at it and going, look, I haven't touched that in 14 years. I don't think I'm going to.
That's so tough though, because
it is so tough because I'm like, you can't fucking get another one.
Yeah, sometimes you get a spark and you're like, got heaps of that stuff. Like,
it makes me laugh because like everywhere I look in this room, and my wife's like, don't put your fucking trinkets on the shelf. But like I've got all the old tech, old stuff. I've got my original digital stills camera from 2001, so it's an old Kodak unit before they got belted into the ground. Because I'm like, we must be about this close from retro digital photography. Because it's got a 3.1 megapixel. I've got, I've still got the original 8 megabyte CF card. You can't fit one frame of a modern camera onto those things. But I just think they're incredible. Like that exponential growth in technology and in our lifetimes as well. Back when, you were saying that stuff about computers. Like I was absolute bandit hooking things together, plugging into things. And I remember like the email bombing, where you could actually gear it up to send 5,000 emails to an address and you could crash it, like old school DDoS.
Yeah. It's like, when I was studying IT, we didn't have Ethernet cables. It was all coax. So you're literally running cables in a star network, terminating things and stuff. Again, this is old people talk, but I don't think now people understand how easy it is. This conversation, even in Australia with our shitty internet, this conversation would have been hard 2 years ago. I had some of my guys like Brandon outside with a phone on a stick trying to get 3G to try and have enough internet to upload videos, So I think right now, you're right, even original digital stuff is going to be nostalgic real soon. And if you've got some, I think it's going to be
real. Mate, I've got everything. That's why I've got a secret shed where I keep my things. So when I tell my wife I'm going to throw them out, I actually put them in the shed.
Yes, like I don't know if you saw the episode of Modern Family. They've got a storage unit. Every time Phil goes to throw something out, he puts it in a storage unit.
I have not seen that, but that is exactly what I do. If you saw my storage unit, you'd wet yourself. There's like basically every gaming console ever made. I've got all the boxed things. I've got my Sega Rally 2 arcade machine, like all the shit that I'm absolutely not allowed to have at home because my wife just looks at it and just goes, mate, what is wrong with you?
Nice.
And I go, mate, I'm a 16-year-old boy trapped in a 44-year-old man's body.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, it's good to finally have the like. It's good to have the awareness that that kind of stuff is good to keep. You know, like every now and then, I swear, anything I've thrown out or like a hobby I've kind of forgotten about and ended up throwing out, I'm like, oh, where's all my whatever 3D printing? Where's all this? Oh, I had heaps of that. Where is it? And then it's buried in the container down the back or somewhere. And I get it out. I was like, oh, this is cool again. But then, then life gets in the way and everyone's busy. And then another 2 or 3 or 4 years pass, and you're like, oh crap, I kept meaning to do that. So,
and then you dig it out again, because this will also probably make you laugh. I've also got like a briefcase phone, because I've got a pile of old cars, and I really like having period correct technology. So my V12, I've got like the fold out phone, and then I've got a briefcase phone for the other one, and I pulled them apart, wired them up so that you could put Bluetooth in them, and so that you could pick them up, but they'd just pick up a Bluetooth signal, so it looks like it's using it, and it lights up. And I'm like, that is the fucking dumbest thing a man could do, but I think it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, absolutely. That's literally my favorite type of stuff. Like, is that it's, and even synthwave type music, you know, like just making old stuff. I mean, look behind me. I got a 51-year-old, 53-year-old car with cutting edge tech. I'm thinking about getting like laser wheel height sensors, laser ride height sensors. Like, this stuff, I just think of the guys racing them around Bathurst, just wrestling these things with nothing.
With nothing. No data.
Even imagining, like, I mean, you see the photos of the pits from Bathurst, they're on the dirt, like open car trailer pulls up. Okay, there's the pit. It's awesome. Like, they are absolute legends. But I still like the idea of retrofitting a car like this that could never have imagined living this life. Like,
I'm having the conversation with an ECU manufacturer at the moment, where I look at my 60 series, and I'm not trying to do anything mad with it, but I'm like, my data collection off this car is disgraceful. I'm like, I measure my gearbox temp by putting my hand down on the shifter, because the heat transfer through the shifter, I can sort of go, a bit hot, should probably back it off, or really hot, I'm in trouble. And I do that by like touching the gear selector, and I'm like, look, that's good seat of the pants, but we could probably do better. And I'm there going, wouldn't it be great if I could just, like, I need an ECU, but I don't need it to manage the injectors, because it's got mechanical injection, because it's gangster.
Yeah.
I just want all of the data logging, so that before I change something, I can know if what I change makes it better or makes it worse in simple scientific practice.
Yeah, exactly. Other than sticking your hand on the gear stick. So
sticking your hand on the gear, fuck, that's pretty bad.
I remember when this thing was carby, I knew when it was too hot, when the floor, like under the brake pedal, when I couldn't hold my feet on it anymore, then I had to back it off, because the headers were making the underneath the floor start to glow and melt the old 1950s like asbestos sound deadening. So
absolutely.
And now I got a temperature gauge, so it's getting there.
I know.
I'm pretty advanced.
Imagine that. Imagine if I could put probes in, and then I could know. And I'm like, hang on, that exists.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can, and for me, again, with this car, because I've had it since day one, I've had it for 20-something years. It was my second car ever, actually.
You got to tell me, what did you pay for it back then? Because that would have been about $300.
I think it was $4,000, but it came with an entire XB GT, like genuine GT running gear. So 4-speed top loader, 351, 9-inch diff. So everything in that, other than the new motor and gearbox, and diff actually, so it's all been replaced by now. But everything until this current iteration was XB GT. So it was all a GT block, the one we blew up. The 9-inch was from a GT. So the steering wheel and everything in that is still, you can see on the wheel up there. So that XB, that GT steering wheel is an XB GT, not an XY. Because that wagon for 20 years was basically an XB GT in an XY wagon skin. So it's always been quite fun. It's always been a bit of a bitzer. But the fact that it's a wagon, maybe not too scared to cut it up. You know, I'm not cutting up a rare sort of thing that someone's going to yell at me about.
It's not a collectible, and I've got the same thing with my XR6, where it's a Wover car. It had had an impact. Wasn't bad enough to do anything annoying, but like, then I don't feel bad at all about doing horrible things to it.
Yeah, I mean, everything you've done, everything you do since that date is a better life for the vehicle too. Like,
absolutely.
it would have
Otherwise,
been
it
in
would
the
have just,
scrapper otherwise.
it would have just gone and rotted. But it gets to live a whole new life of stupidity, which I think is a real gift for both me and that shitbox.
Yeah, way more fun. Exactly.
This has been a really enlightening conversation. I really had no idea where we'd go in this. Given that you've, for a nerd gone rock star gone, like, actually, before you get too close to the end, you do have to tell me that rock star life. I have to imagine that was a very odd time. What was one of the most peculiar things that happened as you were traveling the globe where you just went, what the fuck?
I mean, it's pretty cliche. Like, it's a really, like, 'cause we've done a lot of interviews around the world and all that sort of stuff. And that is a relatively, like, a thing that we think about a lot, because, like,
I'll bet. Because you'd be there
the
going,
biggest
I'm
thing
just
is,
some dude going, the fuck
yeah,
happened?
like, the biggest realization is, how did I get to, say, we played a big massive festival in Florida quite a while ago now, but at the time I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is something that you'd see on TV. I'm still just me doing the same things, but I'm in Florida. These Americans, and I guess as an Australian, American culture is kind of like where all our TV comes from, all our festivals, like a lot of our musicians. So being over in America, fully touring, and having the Americans respond really well to us. I think we're nominated for a Billboard Award, which is like their ARIA. So breaking into that level of touring and festivals in America was probably one of the biggest moments where we went, oh, this is crazy. Like,
this is fucking mayhem. Like, how did we get here? Like, from running a couple of pub events, and then you're like,
exactly.
And then you're like, next minute.
Well, I think the good part about that is that's the internet for you. That's why the internet's so important, because that never would have happened before the internet. Our success of Bombs Away was so heavily internet oriented. I think we wouldn't have even got signed if our first track didn't blow up by itself. There was no record label behind that. That was just us saying, hey, what about this funny, dumb thing, And some of our biggest ones are just people on the internet liking it and then talking to their promoters and going, hey, check out these guys. So that is such an important thing for music now. If you're doing something cool, like, you can
make it. But this is how your Super Cheap story started. Like, your story repeats in the sense that you make the thing, you put the thing out there, and then people go, that's cool. And that seems to be what's happened every time, simply because you can't help yourself. And you've decided, well, shit, I'll throw it out to the world and see what they think. And that's actually where a lot of people fall down, is they're scared, as you did in the ski mask, and going, oh, God, do I really want to let people know that this is me? Whereas I guess you've reached a point now where you go, oh, actually, there's an upside from time to time.
Well, I mean, imposter syndrome is a real thing, and I think it affects a lot of people in whatever they're doing as well. Like, and I honestly think maybe that's one of the things that I like about motorsport, and one of the things that I think in drifting is something that I think could be holding viewers back, is in motorsport, especially drag racing, even circuit racing, TCR, like supercars. You have a winner. You know what I mean? You've got guys like Shane Van Gisbergen, who not particularly personable, not interested in mucking around with press and stuff, because they just born drivers. They just want to drive. But the thing is, that's something where you can do it. You can be the best at what you do, and there is an end result, which is really, really cool. Whereas with music and subjective sports, again, like drifting with judging and stuff, but music and things where it's just totally subjective, people's opinion, which is important to them, gets projected onto you. I think that is difficult for a lot of people, and we've dealt with it as well, is what opinions and stuff matter. Like, how much of the noise do you absorb? And I know at the A-list celebrity type level, they can't look. You cannot look. When was the last time you saw a positive article on Facebook or anything about anybody, any celebrity? Because that doesn't get clicks. So the only PR, or the only things you ever hear about artists in the public
horrible.
are basically paid PR, because they've paid for that. They're a press tour for a movie, they're a press tour for a song. So for the artists themselves, that's why they end up having to just step right back from any kind of public forums, as in not internet forums, but any kind of public opinion, because it's almost all negative due to the way that current media has such a short attention span. You can only get clicks if it's negative.
Like the celebrities reading mean tweets and that sort of stuff, like the awful things that people say. Whereas I know, talking to you, that, I mean, you've clearly done some self-reflection over time. You certainly have a an understanding of self, and a humility and a joy. You found things that really push your buttons and make you happy. Was you always like that, or was that something that's evolved over time?
It's a good question. I think I'm happier now than even at the peak of touring as Bombs Away. So my brother is still touring as Bombs Away. I don't think I touched on that. I retired from it, but Tom, as the producer, that's what he wanted to keep doing. Awesome. And we made an announcement, we did a thing, and then after Corona cleared up, he came back and now he's touring again. I think he's just about to head off to America and Canada, touring as Bombs Away. New music, new everything, because he loves it, obviously.
Yeah. And he's got more to do there.
He's got more to do there.
Yeah, he's not ready to, whereas it sounds to me like, as you could speak for an infinite amount of time about the things that you're doing with the car, you've said you've sort of made peace with that time, and you've found a new place to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, based on your question about, I guess, finding happiness, at the peak of Bombs Away, there was always an anxiety about, is this good enough? Are people, the faceless mass of people, are they going to like it? Or are they going to shit all over something that we've worked on for so long
that you're really proud of, and go, this fucking sucks, I like your old stuff better than your new stuff?
Yeah, and there was a big pressure there to continue impressing people, which is such a subjective thing to do. And even though they were, it stopped becoming a reward, and that became the baseline. Like at the start, it was like, whoa, this has gone so crazy. This has gone gold. This has gone platinum. This has sold 100,000 units. This one's ARIA nominated. That quickly becomes the baseline where
where that's just kind of normal. Yeah, you're like, exactly. How did I not get a trophy? Fuck.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that becomes the baseline. And then I feel, and again, this is me projecting onto bigger celebrities.
Please.
I feel that's why there is certainly a very, very obvious mental health issue with celebrities when they hit their 27-year-old to whatever, because the baseline for what enough is becomes something that you can never achieve anymore. Like, once you've become the biggest actor in the world, what can you do next? You have to find that happiness in what you're doing and what you're achieving. And in my case now, what you're creating, like building stuff, making things work, bringing ideas to life, and doing things that you personally have found that genuinely make you happy, that don't need a reaction or a result or feedback from anyone else. And again, in my case, it's building stuff. But I think in a lot of people's cases, they have to find that first, because it's difficult. And when we were touring, like, from personal experience, and I know Blair from Mighty Car Mods, this is what he studied. I think that's what he's done his all of his studies on, was actually on the mindset of people when they become famous and how that affects you. It really rewires your brain to what the baseline is. And I know quite a few artists, like quite big names, who are now no longer doing things and retired at the peak of their careers, because they just couldn't face bringing out another song and it not performing as well as the last one. And that, again, is the imposter syndrome. Is the next one going to be the one that crashes it all? So if I leave first...
and that's a real burden. That is a heavy burden. Whereas to be able to find joy in these things that you're doing now, and just continuous joy, and for people to be able to commercially acknowledge them. I mean, you have actually won the whole game.
I am very content is a really good word, and I think I've got, like, Teddy, my son, he's here. I'm already teaching him stuff. He's only 2, but teaching him how to put things together and build stuff, I think that's my favorite day. If you could just imagine the best day is hanging out with him in the shed, trying to get him to bring me a bloody spanner instead of a socket. But he's getting there. He gets it right 40% of the time. I can't wait till he's holding the torch for me and I can say, not there,
and you can
point
say,
somewhere else. Yeah.
That's the best.
So yeah, very, very content, very happy. Again, super fortunate. There's so many things that I've done that went amazing and amazing experiences. I wouldn't change anything, but I also would never go back to it. No.
I must say, and I've said to my wife, I just had my birthday a couple of days ago, and turning 44 for me, I'm more content now than I've ever been. Like 27-year-old me so desperately wanted to try and make something of himself. And then I realized making something of yourself actually isn't the goal. You're not trying to get somewhere, just enjoying your day, having a great day, looking forward to a day, and then enjoying the moments in those days, good, bad, or otherwise, whichever way you look at them. When you reach that sort of level of contentment, like, you win. That's it. Like, that's what this show is. This show exists because I like talking to people. And if somebody else likes listening to it, that's fucking great. But I don't really give a shit, because people tell me, oh, it's too long, it's too this, it's too that. And I'm like, I don't fucking care. I'm not making it for you. I love talking to people and them telling me, you know, not the highlights. I don't want to know what it's like at the fucking after parties. I don't want to know what, I don't give a fuck about any of that. I want to know how you got from here to there, because I think that that's fascinating. I think it's I think it's extraordinary, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, your story is so different to what I expected. I had no fucking idea. Like, I thought maybe he's a muso kid. They're like, no, he's a fucking little hacker, badass Miami High dude, like, gone rogue and then gone, nah, this working stuff is shit, and then trying something else. And then you just kept doing that, and then you got better at trying something else.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about talking to you is very rarely do conversations, like, you rewound back to how, like, everything started, and that's not something I've thought of in the past 20 years, you know. Like, in fact, I've forgotten some of the things I've said earlier. I'd totally forgotten about moving to WA and why I moved there and everything, because it's been so long. And the last decade was so busy that I have difficulty, again, other than when I'm home in the shed, not touring, building electric bikes, inventing stuff, playing with cars. The touring stuff has become such a blur of very, 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 very similar days. Get up, it's 5 a.m. There's a trip to the airport, a long flight, a layover, another long flight, lands, get in the pickup, get sometimes straight to the venue, play a show. That's awesome. Love performing. That was always my favorite part. But then get home from the show 4 a.m. Sometimes we have a pickup at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. for the next flight. And that repeats, I guess, ad nauseum for a year, 2 years, 3 years at a time.
And exhausting. Like, if you haven't done massive international travel, it sounds like rock and roll, but it's actually fucked.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned people. Like, the best part of it was getting to see friends that we made who, after touring for 10 years, promoters, event managers and venue owners and other DJs and stuff that are in different places all over the world, and just building friendships over time and seeing them progress. Like, some of a good friend of mine, when we started, he was literally the bartender at one of the events, and now he's running one of the biggest event management companies, because it's been such a journey for people, or for us, but also for people during that period. So I like seeing that side of things. But the touring itself, the traveling, I couldn't really go back to it. And in fact, that's kind of shaped some of what we do now with the video company. I will avoid jobs that require touring. Like there's some real fun things that could video, and I really admire adventure filmmakers and stuff. But I need to be here now. I spent so long away that this property where I am, I've got my shed, I'm looking at building another shed. We've got 10, 11, 12 people who work with me and for me, but I just need this base now because I didn't have one for a decade. And that's something that I really, really, really appreciate. And I don't think some people do, because they've never sort of had the flip side, understand how important a home base is. Just mowing the lawn, being out in the yard, looking after the place, like having a real genuine home base. Because there was a few years where I barely even had a house. Like, again, we left Perth, didn't see the place again for 2 years. I only went back, funny story, went back and the entire house was like overgrown with onions. We'd left, it was fully stocked. We didn't even turn the fridges off. We thought we were coming back next weekend, and we were gone for years.
That's awkward.
I had a 4Runner at the time. I was always playing with cars. We had a 4Runner that we swapped, put a 350 Chev in a 4Runner and stuff. And I swapped that car to a friend who knew a real estate agent. I gave them my car to clean the house and get it ready to sell. And they said, "Hey, this house is too bad. Someone's got to come and look at it." And the house was overgrown with onions and potatoes because they'd grown in the dark in the thing and created an ecosystem. It was chaos.
That's mayhem.
Until I bought this property, I didn't have a home base and lived in apartments and mucked around and touring, and I didn't.
Yeah,
it was fun at the time,
but as a father as well, you have to give the time to your child, and you've done all these things, and you understand the rock and roll lifestyle, and then you can also appreciate, like, mate, I love the shit out of, like, I've just done the sand, I've done the aerating on my front lawn, mate, I'm out there at night,
nice.
so that, and I'm out there I've just mowed, I've got a putting green out the side here, I've bonded that down to the ground, and, like, I can't tell you the joy that brings me, like, just through simple. And I had my son out there because I've got the whole cup in the ground, and he's out there trimming with the scissors to make it just right.
Nice.
Like that, it's astonishing how magical that becomes.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to the topic of hyperfixation, I became a grass guy a few years ago. So I was out there scarifying and getting into that. So I've got a really nice little patch. I'm on 2 acres here, so it's okay, but I've got a little bit that's finally where I want it. I'm out there working on that every now and then. But
have you got a cylinder mower?
Super busy. No, I don't. I'm not that good. I am scarifying it. I'm just with a rotary mower at the moment, but I'll get there. I need a little bit more time.
I can't wait to see the kind of cylinder mower you would build, because that was one of my hyperfixation rabbit holes.
Oh yeah,
was I had to build it, and I built mine, and then got it powder coated sparkly gold, which at that point in time, people thought I was dropped on my head, and I'm like, yes, I was. But I just wanted a sparkly gold. I actually wanted it like the Dictator, like gold AK-47. But they couldn't do that.
That's awesome.
And I want to see the mayhem.
I'm already thinking about an electric one too, because you can get some
electric one
hubs,
and the gyro
converted one.
Oh my God, you could make yours mow patterns. I could just see you putting some IT into it and then making it.
You could do a GPS map shape. That could be cool. Or you can just do some string lines and stuff.
And then the real problem,
again, I wouldn't want to automate it.
I'd make it do a giant dong would probably, unfortunately, be the thing I'd map in down at my mate's place.
Big dong in the yard,
Yeah. So
like the what are they? The RoboVacs.
Yeah.
But just a big one of those in the yard.
Yeah. Mower RoboVac. Now it is 1:04. I'm very conscious of your time here, buddy, and I don't want to run over.
I do have to run soonish, but I'm enjoying the chat.
Yeah, well, so am I, mate. But I didn't want to overstay my welcome and make you late, because I could go down any of the rabbit holes, including the lawns and stupidity. But before we go too far, so that you can bail in a hurry, if people would like to follow the shenanigans that you get up to, where are the best places for them to follow you around the internet?
Well, this is an interesting thing. I don't even have an Instagram at the moment. So I have been, since we left music. I don't have an Instagram. I have my personal Facebook page, which is probably that's it. Like a few people follow me on there, but that's where I post random stuff, usually car stuff now. But to be honest, we've got a Video Co Facebook, which is just Aus Video Co. But we are so busy with creating that I rarely post, and that's one of my goals for the next year is to actually post some things that I'm proud of and went really well, and I just want people to see. Most of it is actually on the Super Cheap Auto pages, which I know sounds a bit silly, but we work so hard on creating with and for Super Cheap that most of the stuff that we're working is nearly everything on the Super Cheap Auto Instagram and Facebook and socials and stuff is something that we've pretty much created in this shed or around the place. So sounds really weird, massive company, but I'm really personally involved in the content there. And that's where a lot of my creative passion is going. Like, even if it looks like again, for lack of a better word, a commercial, there's usually a lot of time and thought and mucking around in there. I love trying to bring a little bit of humor to a company that at the end of the day has got to sell products. So we try and do some funny things. There's a lot of memes. I've made a couple of memes that have gone super viral, which I love doing. There's one of me playing the music on a toolbox here. It's got 10 million views and stuff. So
I think I've seen
honestly,
that, actually.
either my personal Facebook or the Super Cheap Instagram. That's
Super Cheap Auto Instagram. So that's you dropping bangers on Super Cheap Auto on their Insta.
So not only, this is a bit funny, so not only do we make the content, we also run the socials for Super Cheap Auto. We have the contract to do the socials. I've got some people who work on that, but technically whenever you see us post the meme that says like these people have no idea they're in the presence of the Super Cheap Auto admin, that's usually me or one of my people. So that's are epic. 100% involved in that, and, and I love it because they're a company that's not afraid to be a little bit cheeky.
So throw the plug there. So that's at Super Cheap Auto.
You just at Super Cheap Auto. Yep.
Bam. So that's your. So you don't have your own personal YouTube channel? Like you don't have a Sketch Coleman YouTube to put dumb ideas on?
No. So I've got some of the electric bike stuff.
Projects. I want to see like all the shit. I want to see you like dumb shit. Don't put any production effort into it. Just film it with your phone and push enter.
Yeah. To be honest, I think even just this chat is kind of inspiring me a little bit more to do that, because I'd forgotten about some of those things and I still have ongoing projects that I would love to get back to. But I've got to do one basically. I'll say that you've reminded me that is one of my New Year's resolutions is to just do one that's not the bombs away one.
I want to see just random stuff. Shit. I want to see mad nerd shit. When you're there going speed controllers and this sort of stuff, do you know how rarely I have those conversations? I do not often. It's why I always, like, I go in to buy like a Switch and I'm there for an hour and spend $300 at JCar because like I go in and I have the nerdiest conversations with the good people that work there. I want more of that. I want all the sketch, because like this is the thing. Like I looked at you and I'm like, you know, rock star car guy, and like, yeah, you're totally a rock star car guy, but like also super smart science guy.
Yeah, I should. I got some projects in mind. I've still got a couple of electric bikes that have again 90% finished, but just paused. Everything's filmed. The videos are ready to go up. I just got over the ideas and got busy with video stuff. So, yeah, my resolution for 2025, I'll say it again out loud, is other than run a 7, win roll racing, is also start a YouTube. And I have filmed most of this XY build. It's just all sitting on a hard drive because, like the saying, a plumber's toilet or a mechanic's car, it's so difficult to edit and create videos for other people all day and then go and do your own projects.
Oh, it's exhausting. But what you probably need to do is engage somebody in your team and go, right, you've got 1 hour a day to do, you know, sketch dumb stuff. You have to put it together. I'll shoot it. You put it together. You get 1 hour a day, tiny little window of time that won't impact too much. But, you know, the accumulating effect will be we can put your other mad shit out on the internet, because I want to see that.
Yeah, I think... All right, that's the go. I'll do that. I'll take that. That's what I'm taking away from this chat. Is it's time to do that, because it doesn't take too long. It's just convincing yourself that people want to see it. You know, like so much sitting on a hard drive.
This is like you're the next generation Dr. Carl.
What a legend! He's one of my heroes, even when I was a little kid. So, no, that's awesome, man.
Mate,
All right, I better
school.
run. I got to unfortunately do some work, which is not as fun as hanging out with you.
That's all right, dude. I am just immensely grateful, and I've really enjoyed that we've also retained our chat with Al in it, because I was like, this is so silly that there's three of us in here. But what I really enjoyed is just the cheeky banter.
Yeah, he's a legend.
We're
still doing some work with him too. So I don't know if he mentioned, but there might be some more stuff coming up with Al that you'll start seeing around the internet. Oh, one of them's live. I can mention it. Oh. So we went up to the old Skid Factory thing, which is now just Allied, which is Al, and we filmed with Al as himself. Some of the videos aren't out yet, but we did a meme with him where the joke was, what did we say? We said, we asked Al to do a video of the Super Cheap Auto Trade website, and this is what we got. And the video is, it already exists, but it's just Al filming himself. But we spent a whole day filming with Al, so there's lots more stuff coming out with him.
That's amazing. Because mate, whenever I'm working on my own car and I start like getting irritated, I'm like, I stop and I go, use your brain.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
I'm like channeling Al and his sensible nature.
Yeah, just imagine he's there getting you to hold the torch for him, and then that
Absolutely.
Goes, all right,
and then he'll clip you over the head going, idiot, this just slow down.
So on that note, Al said to me 3 years ago when I put the sniper on, he said, they work. You run the risk of something happening and you not being able to see what it was. You got to go direct port or multi-port injections. And I said, yeah, sweet. I've already got the sniper. I'll see how it goes. That not listening to Al cost me an entire many dollar rebuild on this motor. And as soon as it happened, I thought, Al said to do that. He said to do a Haltech. He said to go multi-port injection, and that would have saved me a year of mucking around. So that was some real good advice.
We've got to listen to that old man advice. All right, I'm going to let you go so we don't hit another rabbit hole. Mr. Sketch Coleman, thank you very much for giving us this time, and for everybody listening to the All Red Everything podcast, thank you for joining us. Be kind to yourselves. We're out.
Cheers, man.
Thank you.
Thanks,
dangerous.